Welcome to Education Insight. I'm Lacey Kendall. This week we offer you a kind of variety show. Recently I grabbed a recorder and a mic and I headed out to the Inland Empire Science Olympiad, where thousands of grade school kids competed in biology, chemistry, physics, earth science, and engineering for what is called the IE's most successful annual STEM event. Today, you'll hear some of those junior scientists sharing their work and their love for science. One of the directors of the program, Karen Westerling, joins us as well. And we're joined by Juparner Singh, an 8th grader from Heritage Intermediate School in Fontana, who recently tied for first place in San Bernardino County's 3rd annual Spelling Bee. 2 impressive leaders in education were honored last month for their work. One is Beth Schwant, the Riverside County Teacher of the Year, who we meet later, and Craig Petinak, honored as Classified Administrator of the Year for Riverside County. His job is to tell the stories of what is happening at schools in that region. Craig, welcome to Education Insight.
Thanks, Lacey. It's good to be here on Education Insight.
Well, first and foremost, how does it feel to be named the Classified Administrator of the Year?
Well, I have to say, Lacey, part of my job as the Public Relations and Communication Services Director is to recognize others. And so I've been on the surprise crew of bringing that spotlight to other people for almost 10 years now.
Oh.
So to see that spotlight swivel around and make me the story instead of being the one to tell the stories is a little jarring, but that's truly a career highlight.
Yeah.
You know, part of what we do in communications is we lift other people up. We shine that spotlight where it deserves to be shined. And I think about sometimes when you're working so hard and you're focused so hard on a project or on doing your job or being focused on something, it's like you're working inside of a jar, and the world can see the great work you're doing, but you can't read the label on the jar.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's important to have somebody read that label for you. It may say you're doing great work or you're excellent, and sometimes it takes someone else's perspective out there to see it in order to say something to you about it. So that's a little bit about how it feels. It feels like a great honor for me to honor my parents, who are both educators, and my in-laws. My wife's an educator, and my daughter's going to be a teacher as well. She's in college right now. And so they may never get this spotlight, but if we can make education a great opportunity for people to be recognized, I want to be able to continue that spotlight, swivel it back where it belongs, back on educators who are doing great work every day.
Right on. So you talk about being in the business of lifting people up. Describe your work and this job of lifting people up as the Director of Public Relations and Communication Services in Riverside County's County's Office of Education.
Sure. Well, this position is, sometimes when I tell people about what I do for my job, they think, wow, that's a really cool thing to be able to tell great stories of what happens in education. I didn't know schools had that. And so I get to tell them how great it is to be able to kind of raise the profile and the value and the impact of what happens in public education to a wide variety of audiences. Sometimes we're talking to other students. Sometimes we're talking to parents, to business owners, to taxpayers, to elected officials, to city councils. If we aren't telling the story of what's happening in public education, then there can be narratives that develop that aren't necessarily giving the true depiction of what's happening. You know, Lacey, sometimes I think about the airport example. You know, we don't hear about the thousands and thousands of planes that take off successfully and land successfully every day. Those wouldn't make for very good headlines.
No, we hear about plane crashes.
Correct. And so I'm very cognizant that in the over 500 schools in Riverside County, there's a lot of planes that are taking off and landing every day successfully. And so how do I make sure that I'm doing what I can to help tell that story and not let the narrative of what maybe something that did go sideways or didn't quite work the way it should have be the one that defines the narrative for the people I know who are working so hard to change lives through education every day.
Yeah. There's an administrator that I was speaking to a few days ago in Riverside County, and he was talking about you. And he said, the work that you do actually elevates the student's overall experience. How do you believe you do that on a regular basis? Why are people noticing that about you?
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of people who don't even know what a county office of education does. And that's understandable, right? Our experiences of school are largely tied up in what it was like when I was in school. And sometimes at the county office of education, we could be considered the furthest away from the classroom experience. And so we have to be cognizant, and I have to be cognizant of how do I and how does my team ensure that we're bridging the distance that naturally steps between the classroom to the office to the district to the district to the county to the county to the communications office here on the 4th floor in downtown Riverside. And we have a lot of tools at our disposal to do that, right? There's a lot of programs and services that our county office provides, special events, initiatives from the superintendent. We have an award-winning team of designers and communicators and video producers. And so we have the responsibility to deploy those talents, deploy those skills to help the world understand what the student experience is like, to give more awareness to those programs that are making a difference, to shine the spotlight on those outstanding principals or security personnel or front desk secretaries and kind of that everyday excellence that's happening. Lacey, I'm sure as you've talked to teachers, you are thinking about what it makes to be an effective teacher, right? You've had podcasts on that. You talk to people who all the time who are thinking about what makes a great teacher. And I'd like to go back to a quote from Dr. Brad Johnson. He's a speaker and author. He says, teacher effectiveness is not greatly improved by curriculum, new programs, or initiatives. But when teachers are respected, valued, supported, and they feel like their talents are utilized, then morale increases, job engagement soars, and students benefit too. And so I like to think that's part of what my job is here at the Riverside County Office of Education, is to bring
shine that light.
Shine the light on the everyday excellence that's happening. And we do a lot of storytelling here. You do a lot of storytelling, Lacey.
Yeah.
You shared stories of some of these students in these outstanding projects and outstanding programs. And I always think about the quote from Dr. Brene Brown, who's an educator herself, who said, stories are data with soul.
Oh.
And if I had a tattoo, that's probably what my tattoo would be. But there's data is absolutely essential for making decisions about what's best for students and schools, and whether that's budgets or policies or whatever the topic is. But stories are data with soul just is a reminder to me of why we need to continue doing what we're doing and telling those stories of students who are overcoming barriers, the excellence that's on display, and kind of giving a platform to share those stories, whether it's in an annual report or a YouTube video or a web post or a special event. There's just so many different ways to do it. And that's a great way to kind of elevate that student experience, because if you're elevating the educator, you're elevating the student experience. And even for students, you've talked to inspiring students who overcome barriers, who excel and achieve and are reaching their dreams. When other students read those stories and they see a little bit of themselves in there, someone who looks like them, someone who came from their background, or someone who has some of their same challenges, or even just went to their school, they get a little taste of, hey, that could be me. I could be that person. I'm going to keep on going. And so that's part of what that student experience is. Every time I'm writing a student interview profile story or interviewing a student, I'm thinking about who else is going to see this and has the potential to benefit from it to help them continue on their journey.
Yeah. Craig, in receiving this honor, what folks have been saying is that your great number of accomplishments are what puts you at the top for this award. What would you say has been the accomplishment that you've enjoyed in your position that you're most proud of?
When I think about what I'm most proud of, I think it has to go back to kind of raising the bar on what school communications looks like. And that can be on an individual school level of, helping schools and districts move from the era of clip art and photocopied, typewritten newsletters into digital storytelling and amplifying voices. The modern technology tools absolutely help make schools and school communicators be their own newsrooms. And so even as the digital media landscape changes and the traditional news media landscape changes, the investment into telling our own stories, developing our own channels and audiences, I think we've done that here at the County Office of Education, and I work with the communicators at all the districts in Riverside County, and we work together to build each other up. When we have a great story that involves the districts, they get to benefit from that and shout about it too. When there's something special that's happening at the district level, we can amplify that here through our channels as a way of helping shape the narrative of what education looks like all over the county. So that's, I think, beyond the, winning an award for my work in it, I think really the chance to bring those tools to bear to raise what the expectation is of school communications is really important. All of before our students are students and our parents are parents, they're all consumers. And consumers are being blasted with communications and messages from all directions. Text messages, emails, phone, web, freeway signs, flyers, billboards, whatever there might be. We have to be in the mix of that communication messages, and we have to use modern tools because those are the tools that our audiences are come to expect. That's how important messages come to them. And so as we mature and as the media industry matures, continuing to model what that looks like in our schools is really, really important for all of the students and parents and educators served by our schools.
More with Riverside County's Education Administrator of the Year and the Teacher of the Year. Coming up in just a moment. This is Education Insight. I am here with
Kimberly.
And Kimberly, what grade are you in?
4th.
Tell me all about this.
All these people are here just to see the kids, how they do competing against other kids from different elementary schools. My way of competing is using the knowledge I've learned in the classroom.
What do you want to do when you grow up?
I want to be a scientist.
What kind of scientist do you want to be?
I want to be a scientist that study different kinds of things like chemicals.
All right. Well, good luck to you, my friend. And thank you for taking a moment and talking to Education Insight.
Thank you, too.
Welcome back to Education Insight. And before the break, we met Craig Petnack of Riverside County Schools. Today, we're talking about his recent recognition as Education Administrator of the Year for Riverside County. Craig, before the break, I asked what you most wish that folks knew about Riverside County schools.
It's hard to sum that up into one statement, Lacey. That we have 430,000 students in Riverside County, and if Riverside County was a state, we'd be larger than 17 different states in how many students we serve. And so there's a lot of diversity in there. There's a lot of different focus, but at the end of the line, parents are counting on our schools to help their students' dreams come true. And the variety of those dreams, their success shouldn't depend on their zip code. It shouldn't depend on factors that might be completely out of their control. They still have dreams of where they want to go and what they want to do. And even if they're unsure of what those are, education is the best pathway to get there for them. And so as the Inland Empire grows, they are our next Lacey Kendall podcasts host and Craig Petnack public relations directors, and they are our next police officers and sous chefs and attorneys and mechanics and everything in between. And so what world do we want them to inherit? And they are the future of what our Inland Empire is. So what we do today in helping them be the best they can be is ultimately going to benefit all of us, because they will be taking the reins and be flying for wherever they want to go.
On the telephone, Craig Petnack. He has been named the Classified Administrator of the Year for the Riverside County Office of Education. Craig, thank you for taking my phone call today and speaking with us here on Education Insight, and congratulations on your honor.
Thank you so much, and thanks for elevating educators and everything you do, Lacey.
Mm-hmm. Last month, Beth Schwant, a music teacher in Riverside, was named that county's Teacher of the Year. She joins us by telephone today. Beth, welcome to Education Insight.
Thank you, Lacey.
Mm-hmm. Beth, could you describe your role as a music teacher at Lake Hills Elementary School?
Well, I believe I have the greatest job on earth, and I am a general music teacher. This year, I'm teaching grades 3 through 5 and also kindergartners. And in a normal day, we might sing and do some choreography. We might dance with scarves. Some days we play xylophones or the recorder. We compose with the Google Music Lab. We drum in a world drumming circle. And we can't forget, sometimes we like to pull out these long tubes called boom whackers. And we play along with YouTube videos and pop songs in the boom whacker. So always an exciting day of some new way to make sound.
That sounds fun. How long have you been a music teacher?
You know, most of my life I've been a music teacher. I started by teaching my sister and brother piano lessons when they were in the house, and I started as a piano teacher in college. And my very first teaching job at a private school, I had my first music gig in K through 12. And although I wasn't always a full-time music teacher, all the way back in the 80s, I started my teaching, and it would usually be choir, some sort of musicals, plays, some sort of music, maybe in Vacation Bible School at church, but always teaching singing, dance, and engagement with music.
You know, Beth, years ago when they started trying to take away programs such as music in our schools, a lot of people said you can't do that because there is something that music provides that nothing else does, and it empowers our kids. In what ways do you believe that music empowers students that nothing else can?
You know, we're so fortunate right now in this time in history in the state of California. The people have spoken, and they have said, we want to devote money to the arts in our schools. And now we are getting funding for the arts. And especially, I am excited about what music can do with this Prop 28 money. You know, when you say this, no pun intended, that music gives them a voice, it's not just a singing voice, but through the arts and through singing and music, they're able to express themselves. And they find some sort of a safety net when they're singing with a group of people where they can find their voice physically, metaphorically, and literally, and they gain confidence when they sing with others. And pretty soon, you find that they are getting poise and confidence where they were shy before. They feel that their part matters, and that they start gaining a social confidence that music builds inside of them, this confidence that they're not exactly sure how on earth to express all the feelings and emotions that they have. And it was kind of interesting. Recently, we did an arts workshop on a Saturday, and the kids got to comment in their Google Classroom. And one of them wrote, "I could finally be myself without anyone judging me." So music provides this safe space where they can just take a risk and really trust that they can share what's inside of them, and they're rewarded for it in the beauty of music. And I just love the way it empowers them to try new things and to find their voice.
Mm-hmm. How do you believe music influences the academics for a student?
Well, for many years, we've always known that everyone says, well, math is music, you know, and it all correlates. But what I'm fascinated with is how much hearing and keeping a steady beat is fundamental to reading and literacy. And many of our students can't hear when sounds are lined up. And so they struggle when they're reading because they can't hear the phonemes and the phonics, and their hearing is like static. And Dr. Nina Kraus of Northwestern University has been studying that if we put a drum in their hand and we keep steady beat from as early as pre-K and TK and K, if we continually teach that steady beat, it's helping them line up those brain waves that actually promotes literacy as well. So I love to start music as soon as we can, getting it in the hands of the youngest students, to kind of form that brain towards literacy. But another thing we know is that arts keep kids in school. If the kids are a part of a play or a choir or something that means something to them, it may be the one class that engages them. And then you deal with students who have different types of thinking skills with different sides of the brain. And music allows a different side of our brain to shine. And so sometimes students who may struggle in a certain academic subject get the courage and the positive strokes because they are brilliant in music. And it reaches our students with special abilities and also our multilingual learners. Music is like the one thing that promotes all of these learning challenges and allows them to shine. And then, of course, we know since the pandemic, we're really focused on social and emotional learning. And there's nothing more beautiful than music to connect us socially and emotionally with each other, and then to find our own center of what we're feeling and how we can express that through music. So I think it absolutely positively influences not just the academic, but the personal development. Yes.
If you just joined us, you're listening to Education Insight. Our guest is Beth Schwant. She's a music teacher at Lake Hills Elementary School in the Alvord Unified School District. Most notably, she is the 2023 Riverside County Teacher of the Year. And I'd like to go back to that for just a minute more, Beth. You were recognized for your successes in the classroom and with the outcomes that you are finding and that your students are enjoying. What would you say is your greatest accomplishment?
You know, nothing thrills me more than providing an arts opportunity for a child who would otherwise never be exposed to it. I like to say that vocal cords don't have zip codes. And by that, I mean that students have such great talent and potential, but if they aren't able to afford private lessons or get involved in activities that promote this, they may never know that this is one of their gifts or their talents. And so I love to expose students, and they may realize that this is something that they love. And just because they never got a chance in other realms, our music program in a school gives them the chance to experience music, art, dance, drama, media arts, digital arts, visual arts. And I love that. And I would have to say that just hooking children into it who would have never had that opportunity, the process of creating is such an accomplishment every day, and every day looks different. I used to worry about the product, how it looked on stage. Now I worry about the process and the creative ways that students are improvising and thinking and creating. And probably the thing that, no kid needs a perfect teacher. They just need a teacher with enthusiasm and energy and excitement where they can see it means something to you and you pass that on to them. So I like to think of the greatest accomplishment as when a student starts their learning in music and carries that skill and that love of music on for their lifetime. So that to me is the greatest gift I could give a child. But then the next exciting thing, as of course we talked about funding new music and arts positions with this Prop 28, my next big goal is to mentor the next generation of music teachers and make sure that they have experiences and observation hours and time with me and other music instructors in the classroom so that we can promote an entire new generation of music teachers.
Yeah. Beth, our producer, pointed out to me that you recently became a full-time music teacher, and that's after years of incorporating one period of choir while teaching computer literacy or language art. And she wanted me to ask you which of these courses you're most passionate about, but I think I already know the answer.
Well, can you imagine a career, that allows you to reinvent yourself in new ways through the decades? Being a teacher is really being a lifelong learner. Mm-hmm. And although I've always had one component of my schedule as a choir teacher, finally, at the age of 53, I had the chance to become a full-time music teacher. And that was my dream. And as I think back to my years in the Alvord family, I started as a graduate of Alvord in the 70s. I became a teacher in Alvord in the 80s. I became a parent volunteer in the 90s, an elementary teacher in the 2000s.
Wow.
I was a middle and high school choir teacher in the 2010s, a full-time elementary teacher in the 2020s. And guess what? I am teaching my grandchildren who are kindergartners at Lake Hills Music.
Oh, my
so
goodness.
6 decades of a renaissance and a rebirth. I loved learning about computer literacy, but remember, 1984, we were talking about, floppy disks that were really floppy. And so I learned so much through my years. I loved teaching language arts and history. Actually, part of my joy of teaching elementary music was having been a 4th grade teacher, right? So I learned how to manage a classroom first before I added in the specialty of music. So when I look back at those 6 decades, every year promoted me and equipped me for the next challenge. And then finally, I reached my dream of using my single subject music credential. And now I'm living the dream. And I have enjoyed every step of it because it was a constant learning curve that just re-energized me and refocused me and reinvented me. And it's just been, to me, the career of a lifetime, a real blessing.
If there is one, what would you say is the most difficult part of teaching grade school kids today?
I do have to use the caveat of teaching music. It really is a magical time with these kids. We don't have grades. We don't have tests. There is no pressure. It's just learning and joy. There's no discipline because we're always doing something fun and engaging. But I will say in general in society, as a teacher, you start to really take on the emotional feelings of your students and their families. And we see that many families are under a great deal of stress. And it is really our jobs as educators to come alongside the families and see if there's ways we can support them so that we can make education fair and equitable for all students. And I do know that several students live with situations that when you find out about their lives, it gives you motivation to make sure that you can help them solve the needs that they have so that they can come to school and learn. And so I think that I've seen in the last few years more needs within a family unit that we need to come along and support. And so it's difficult because you want to give all of your time to learning and education, but actually you have to spend a great deal of time getting to know your families and seeing how you can support them.
What is the greatest piece of advice that you would share with another educator that you've learned along this journey?
I kind of alluded to it in that last question, but I really hope that educators are appreciating and valuing the relationships that you build with your students, your parents, your colleagues, and your community. You're building a building block of the community in the future. And it's really not about the knowledge or the experience academically. It's really about that relationship that you build. And luckily in music education, we often have the same students for many years in a row. So we're really able to build relationships with the student, the parents, and then they become part of the community because you get them involved. And I just love the relationship part of education, but also to recognize the unique and creative brilliance in every child. Every child is going to approach it differently, but they all have a unique slant, a way that they think. It's quite brilliant because there's no right or wrong answers when you create music. And I love to watch them think out of the box, and based on their own experiences and their own feelings and heart, they get to create music that I think is brilliant. And so I would hope that teachers always look for the brilliance and really build that relationship.
She is Beth Schwant. She's a music teacher at Lake Hills Elementary School in the Alvord Unified School District. And she is this year's Riverside County Teacher of the Year. Beth, congratulations on your honor. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on our show, Education Insight, this afternoon.
Thank you so much. And what an honor it was to be included in your program. Thank you for all you do for education.
A few weeks ago, thousands of kids and parents from schools all over the Inland Empire descended upon Rancho Cucamonga for the biggest STEM event in this region, the Inland Empire Science Olympiad, sponsored by science giants like Northrop Grumman and Caltech. The event brought teams from elementary through high school to compete in challenges ranging from chemistry to ecology. And it brought me and my recorder there as well. Karen Westerling is the supervisor of this event. So while she took a quick break, I sat down with her to ask about the evolution of the Science Olympiad. First of all, Karen, thanks for joining us on Education Insight.
Thank you for having me, Lacey.
So tell me how the Inland Empire Science Olympiad first began.
We got started about 15 years ago, maybe a little longer, probably a little longer. And we knew that Science Olympiad was around. We had a teacher named Lisa Marroquin, who you might know. She was recently on the board in the Corona Norco district. And we were teaching together at Gage at the time. And she had been involved with Science Olympiad since its very beginning, more than 3 decades ago. She was very eager for us to start doing Science Olympiad. And we had a small program in the area, but we've really been expanding for the last decade or so that we have more schools involved, more kids doing science.
You talk about expanding. You've expanded quite a bit. There are more than 1,000 kids out there, parents, teachers, families, and they're all from different schools. For our listeners who are not aware of the event, could you tell us about how many teams come to participate in this?
Each team has 15 students, and this year we had 26 high school teams. Some schools have more than one team, about 20 middle school teams and 10 elementary school teams. One of our hopes is to increase the number of elementary school teams, because that will help the middle and high schools grow.
So what is it that is so exciting about this event, that many kids would be here, that many schools would be participating?
As the name implies, this is like the Olympics, but science. The teams participate in 23 different events, and they usually participate in pairs of students. So each student is training for somewhere between 3 and 6 events for the year. Some events are core knowledge events where students learn about a topic such as ecology or physics or ornithology, and then they will take some sort of test about the topic. Some are hands-on. They come and they'll do a lab and analyze their results. Some are building events where the student either builds here or they have built and tested and rebuilt and logged in all sorts of data for some sort of vehicle or contraption, and we test it here. Those tests often involve an unknown variable. So, for example, this year we're doing Scrambler. This is a vehicle that carries an egg. The goal is to get as close as possible to an unknown distance. They have a range. And not break the egg. They're raw eggs. And right now, we don't want to waste an egg. But so when they arrive, they'll finally be told, oh, it's going to be so many meters. And now they can adjust their vehicle and run the vehicle. One of my favorite events is called Experimental Design, and we do this one every year. The students will receive some materials. They need to use at least one item of the materials, and they're allowed to bring some limited things, pencils and calculators mostly, simple calculators, to the event. They'll be given a theme. Their job is to come up with a hypothesis, develop an experiment to test their hypothesis, conduct the experiment, record the data, write a report with conclusions, and clean up. They have 55 minutes.
Wow. We'll have more of my discussion with Karen Westerling at the Inland Empire Science Olympiad in just a moment. I'm Lacey Kendall, and this is Education Insight. One scientist with me here right now. What's your name?
Paige.
What grade are you in?
7th grade.
Okay, so what brings you to the Science Olympiad?
I just enjoy science, so I joined Science Olympiad to do different events. I really like doing experiments, and this was more experience than normal science.
What do you want to do when you get older, Paige?
I really like science. I also really like music, and that stuff, so I want to maybe do something with both science and music.
There you go. All right. Well, good luck to you on that page, and thanks for talking to Education Insight today.
Thank you.
Go ahead and tell me your name.
My name is Christian Lim.
And what school do you go to?
I go to Riverside STEM Academy.
And you?
I also go to the same school, and my name is Jag.
I like science because it's very knowledge-based, so you can't just randomly make stuff up, and you have to actually know your things and know your facts.
Yeah. How about you? What makes you love science so much?
I love science because I like things that have straight answers, not like something where anyone can have the right answer.
You guys have fun. Good luck in the competition, all right?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a variety show of sorts today on Education Insight. Still to come, our discussion with the Inland Empire Spelling Bee champion from Fontana. But first, more of my conversation with Karen Westerling at the Inland Empire Science Olympiad last month. Karen, do you think exciting events like this, where kids have to think in that way, where they're building hypotheses as a team with other elementary, middle school, and high school kids, do you think events like this cause a notable shift in kids' passion for science here in the Inland Empire?
Absolutely. There's nothing like this. They get to learn science, do science, and that's even more important. Make friends, have fun. They're developing sportsmanship skills. There's just so much here in both the intellectual and the affective realm for them to learn. And as a teacher, I have seen students who were partners in an event who became best pals. They were hanging out at each other's houses and the whole bit. So, one of the funniest stories, another event's called Write It, Do It. And the goal is to develop the Vulcan mind meld. One partner will see some sort of abstract sculpture that can be made out of all kinds of things. They have 20 minutes to write a description of the sculpture, no pictures allowed. Then this description is given to their partner in another room who is given a bag of stuff. It's all the stuff you need to make the sculpture. And they have about 20 minutes to put it together. This is so exciting. I remember the first year we did this at my school, we had 2 girls and they were so enthusiastic that they were practicing the night before the big event, using cutlery and dishes. Now, obviously, they couldn't do the color, but the one kid would build it, and then on their phones was describing it to the other kid who would build it, and then they would snap pictures and exchange pictures afterwards on their phones. And they were just having the time of their life, and they did pretty well, too.
Yeah, that would be difficult. That'd be very difficult to do. Karen, you are a recently retired high school instructor.
My most recent 19 years was middle school. I love 7th grade. But I've also done 15 years of high school, and before that, I did undergraduates in college. So the joke was I was going to have to get to kindergarten before they let me retire, but I retired earlier.
So Karen, you've seen the gamut from the beginning to all the way graduation day. In the last few years, we have tried in the Inland Empire as a collective of schools to address the lack of STEM attention and growth for a lot of our kids. And they say it's changing. I think events like this have a big impact on that. Would you say that our kids are getting more intellectual when it comes to STEM and they're getting better education out here?
Not only that, but events like this deal with the equity issue. Because it's school-based, every child can participate. Sometimes with science fair, which is a wonderful program, some students, they're the children of professional scientists. They have access to all kinds of equipment and personal mentors, whereas other children don't have those things. Here, everybody's at school We really want to get mentors. We're always looking for mentors in our community to come and help tutor the students, because one teacher trying to teach 15 or 30 students 23 subjects is a little insane, and doing the rest of and that's in their spare time. But now every child, regardless of the educational levels of their parent and the kinds of contacts their parent might have, has the opportunity to do high-level science.
Karen Westerling, we appreciate your time here today. Thanks for letting us cruise around and talk to all the kids and have so much fun here today. And best of luck on this year's Science Olympiad for the Inland Empire and on next year's as well.
Thank you so much, Lacey. I'm so glad you came to see our great kids, their lovely parents, and all the enthusiastic teachers who are here doing STEM today.
There's a new champion for the 2023 Inland Empire Spelling Bee, and it's Juparner Singh of Fontana. We caught up with him after school a few nights ago to ask him to describe his big win. Hey, Juparner, welcome to Education Insight.
Thank you for having me.
Would you mind pronouncing your name for us?
Juparner Singh.
And what do your friends call you?
Jup.
So tell me first, what does it feel like on the day of a big spelling bee competition? How do you feel? And what was that day like for you in this most recent big one? Were you confident that you were going to win or do well?
Well, I was feeling very apprehensive because it was my last time participating.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the pressure to do well. And it was also my first time competing on the county stage. So that was very nervous for me.
Yeah.
And it was also all the local champions were there too. So I had some good competition.
Yeah. So how do you prepare in the weeks leading up to a spelling bee?
So I prepared around 2 hours and longer on the weekends. I studied the word list that I was provided with, and I also used the Word Club app. It was really helpful for me. The Word Club app was really helpful. It gave me everything I needed for me to do well, and especially with the pronunciation, because there's some words with different origins, the pronunciation just gets really tricky. So it really helped me with that.
Yeah. What was the final word that you spelled correctly to tie for the big win?
So I had 2 words, actually. The first word was coup de grace, which is a French word meaning the last hit, which kills something or someone. And the second word was una corda, which is an Italian instrument.
You want to spell those for us?
Yeah, so coup de grace is COUPDEGRACE, and una corda is UNACORDA.
Wow, very good. Very good, Jeff. So why do you love competing in the spelling bee so much? Because that's what everybody says about Jeff. They say he just finds great joy in this to begin with. And I know other folks in your family have competed as well. But why does it give you such happiness?
Well, first of all, it helps me expand my vocabulary. Half of the words it really helped me with, because I wouldn't know half of the words that I know now if it wasn't for the spelling bee. So it expanded my knowledge on that. And I also liked that it was very challenging, because if you mess up one time, you're out. You have to try again next time. So I really liked that challenge that it gave me.
Yeah.
And it keeps me focused too.
So what was it at the very beginning, before the first time you ever competed in a spelling bee, that made you think, hey, I want to do this. I want to do this myself? Tell me about your family and if that was what inspired you, or you just really wanted to do your own thing in this.
So it was last year. It was my first time competing, because in my previous schools, they didn't offer the spelling bee. So last year was the first time I did it. So what really got me into it was back in my elementary years, my dad and I used to play a game which required me to find a word in our surrounding area and I had to spell it in like a certain amount of time. So that when I was introduced to the spelling bee, I thought of this and I was like, okay, this is something I should do.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of that.
So, how are you feeling about the chance to compete at the Scripps National Spelling Bee in National Harbor, Maryland?
I'm feeling very exultant because this is all my hard work paid off. I'm finally getting to go in like a once in a lifetime opportunity. I really enjoying, like I had the chance to go there and meet new people and have the experience.
Are you ready for it?
Well, I'm trying my best because what they've given us is a 500,000 word dictionary. So there's nothing really to study off of there so I'm just doing whatever they've given us, like the origins, the root words, the definitions, because I will need definitions over there.
Yeah.
Those will be rounds over there. So I'm just trying to study with what I have, trying to do my best right now.
If you just joined us, you're listening to Education Insight. We're joined on the telephone by Japarnoor Singh. He is one of the co-champions of the San Bernardino County Spelling Bee, and he is going to be representing our region at the Scripps National Spelling Bee in National Harbor, Maryland, here very soon. So, Jup, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Well, first of all, I really don't know, because in the beginning, I was like, I want to be a paleontologist.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was like, I want to be an astronaut. But now I'm kind of leaning towards the medical field and hoping to do a career in that and maybe an author on the side, like a side job.
Yeah. What advice do you have for other students who would like to enter in spelling competitions but are maybe nervous about it? What would you say to them?
Well, for going off of myself, all I can say is that it's going to need a lot of hard work, determination, and consistency to be able to do well in these, because it was really hard for me in the beginning because I still was getting used to everything. Because if, say, I didn't study for 2 days, I would forget the previous words that I studied. So consistency was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
And also time management, because I had 8th grade going on. I had to worry about that too. So the time management and consistency were basically the things that I did.
Yeah. I'm told that for as much as you love learning to spell newer and more difficult words, there is something completely different that you love to do more than anything. What is that?
Well, I like writing, and I also love playing chess, and I love playing basketball.
Yeah.
I really hope I can be like an NBA player one day. I really love basketball.
That's good. That's good. So what is your plan after the Scripps National Spelling Bee is over?
I'm going to high school very soon, so I have to focus on that. I'm writing some stories, so I have to finish those and hopefully get them published sometime. And I also have to get back on my chess learning, because before the spelling bee, that was a big part, and I have to refresh my memories on that and just, play basketball a little bit more.
Yeah. Japarnoor Singh, co-champion of the San Bernardino County Spelling Bee. He's going to take it all the way to the top at the Scripps National Spelling Bee, representing San Bernardino County. We wish you the best of luck, my friend. Go out there and win that thing, okay?
I'll try my best. Thank you.
And that wraps up another edition of Education Insight. If you have an idea for an education issue we should be covering, write to us, GIAtogether.org. I'm Lacey Kendall for Education Insight. Thanks for joining us.
Education Insight is produced in partnership with KVCR San Bernardino.
Our executive producer is Jacob Poor, and our production engineer is Tyler Veazey.
Alyssa Silva is our production assistant, and Lacey Kendall is your host.
Support is provided by Growing Inland Achievement, working together for inland education and economic success.
And by College Futures Foundation.
Do you have questions or suggestions for the future topics we should be covering?
write to us at educationinsight.org.
Join us again next time for
Education Insight.